in these years that I sought to understand why is there so much war and what can we do to stop it, the teachings clearly state that the reason mankind fell is not because Eve ate an apple. It's because the devil deceived Adam and Eve into killing and eating animals. And then it clearly states that the way that we ascend and restore heaven on earth is through a return to the fleshless diet.
Hello and welcome, beautiful seekers of the sacred. I have been receiving the call from the Holy Land to speak and transmit potent codes that are so vibrant at this peculiar time of year. And so it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome my guest, Catherine Tiferet Levi, as a guardian and wisdom keeper of the sacred Essene lands of Mary Magdalene and the Kabbalah in Israel. Catherine is a priestess, a mystic, teacher, intuitive, and healer. She's the founder of the School of Enlightenment, where she empowers spiritual teachers, healers, and leaders of the new earth to step fully into their divine roles. Her spiritual lineage and influences include the yoga, Essenes, Kabbalah, Tantra, and the ancient Egyptian Isis Hathor tradition. Over the past decade, she has traveled extensively, praying and teaching at sacred sites in Egypt, Israel, India, and beyond. And after having lived in Egypt, she is currently based on the sacred Mount Carmel in Israel, a revered site and historical homeland of the Essene. Catherine also spent the past 2 years living between the Galilee mountains and Magdala, the home of Mary Magdalene by the Sea of Galilee. There, she leads sacred pilgrimages and healing retreats, fostering profound spiritual transformation. Catherine's signature online offerings include the Enlightened Goddess Within, a 12-week one-on-one mentorship, coaching, and healing program, as well as the Way of the Tantric Priestess, a powerful group container for women. Welcome, Catherine. We are so glad to have you here today.
Welcome and blessings and peace to you and all of your listeners.
I'm so excited about this conversation, because it's been so prevalent that I have received like messages from the land that it wants to speak. And so my first question to you is that I always like to ask in each conversation, according to your experience, what is the sacred site medicine of the Holy Land?
So we know that the Holy Land was incredibly important in the first coming of the Lord and Lady. This was the land that the Divine Mother and Divine Father chose to play out the greatest drama, the greatest story that ever happened upon our earth. It was pivotal. It was, the pinnacle of divinity, the path and the lineage and the religion that Yeshua and Miriam followed, which was an Essene religion, is the highest spiritual teachings available to our planet, to this world. And so they, along with their companions, walked over this earth. They planned this incredible mission, this redemption. And I believe that the second coming will also take place here. And although the Essene teachings don't speak about it happening any place, they don't talk about a physical location, the Jewish Kabbalistic teachings do speak about it taking place here. So it's also going to become incredibly important, especially in the next 7 years, as soon as Israel's doors open and the war ends, which I predict will be within the next year. I believe all of the beautiful, divine, holy priests and priestesses, especially priestesses, are going to come from all over the world. They're going to enter Israel, and a light is going to go out into the world, and it's showtime.
It's showtime. I love that. Okay, so you are already connecting a lot of threads here, but before we go into the future, so to say, I want to take a little step back and share a little bit about how you first came to Israel and how you discovered these holy sites.
Sure. So I'm Australian. I was born there. And when I was 19, I left Australia and I moved to Dubai. And so it was almost 20 years ago. I'm 38. And there I became incredibly passionate about the Middle East, politics, history, specifically peace in the Middle East. And the two questions that really guided me at that time were like, why is there so much war? What can I do to stop it? I was actually I had my spiritual awakening around 20 in Dubai and have been on the path since. And I became a journalist and I became obsessed with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I intuitively understood and knew that what was happening between the Israelis and Palestinians was key to bringing peace to the world. And so all of my energy, passion, drive, goals went into that conflict. And at that point, it was mostly researching it. And so I was initially quite pro-Palestinian. I knew that. And so I tried to make myself more neutral. And so after living several years in Egypt and the Middle East and actually going to Palestine, I started my journey into Israel with the Israeli people. And yeah, just spending the last kind of 10 years backing and forthing, between Israel, Australia, and other countries, and really just researching, as a journalist with a research background, it was like just trying to understand what is at the heart of this conflict. It was only some years into that journey that, just a disclaimer, I was spiritual. I believed in angels and God, but I thought religion was just crap. So I was not looking for answers there. I was literally looking for answers everywhere except religion. I thought there's nothing of value to be found there. That was my belief at the time. However, after prophetic encounter with a woman in Australia who predicted and foresaw that I would go to Israel, which I was on my way there when she saw that she didn't know I was going. She foresaw I would go to Israel and I would make a movie about a man who was a prophet. And she was speaking about how this man will bring peace to the Middle East, or the film will be involved working with him to bring peace to the Middle East. And she was using things like terms like the second coming. She was using the term Jesus. That all meant nothing to me at that time. I hadn't even used those words. I was raised with, I guess, almost atheist parents. There was no God in our home. Some family members were into the church and things like that. But when I heard those words, they awakened something in me. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. Actually, she used the word, the true teachings of Christ. And that was what something went off in my mind. Wait a minute. There's true teachings.
Yeah.
And everything she prophesied basically came to pass. I met this guy out in the middle of except we haven't made the film yet, because she said the film will get made in the times of the second coming, which is kind of now for the next 7 years. So that's it. And that's called Love Thy Neighbor. But so I started my journey into the Bible, and I started to research mostly the messianic prophecies in the Old Testament. That's the area that I'm fascinated by, eschatology, like end times prophecies, Messiah prophecies relevant to these times, basically. And through that research, it became completely obvious to me that those prophecies were talking about Jesus, Yeshua. And it was revealed to me and shown to me that this peace that I had so, vehemently been searching for years can only come with God and his Messiah. And that was what started the journey into Israel and this idea of the redemption and the holy sites and Yeshua.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that is, quite profound in itself. And then how was it for you when you actually went to visit the sites where all of,
Sure.
where all of this happened?
Yeah, right. It was another great story. So very much in research, I'm a scholar, I'm a researcher, and so there was a lot of learning, and I felt very called to Haifa, unbeknown to me that was even connected with Yeshua or the scenes or anything. And I was living on Haifa, and I posted a poem on my blog, and it just got all these hits, and I could see that somebody had shared it. Next thing I know, I get contacted by a man from a website called Yeshua.com. And he contacts me. I was living on the mountain in Haifa, and he said to me two things. He said, I'm an Essene, and that I'm a cherub. I didn't know what either of those were at the time. It was the first time I was hearing them. Essenes, of course, were the religious group, the Nazarene Essenes that Yeshua and all the major prophets were part of. And then the cherubim, the race of angels that most of these masters, they come from heaven, they come to earth, but they're cherubim. That's the race of angels that they are. And that was a remarkable awakening for me, because when I started my research into these scenes, I was like shocked to discover that the very mountain that I was on was the main, let's say, gathering or community of the Essenes in Israel at that time. And I found an ancient Essene site, and this was like kind of 10 years ago. Now, a lot of people know about it, but back then I had to kind of like get out different maps and, find this mosque in between this mountain. And, it was like quite a like Da Vinci Code journey just to find this site. And I found it, and it was just so beautiful. And that's one of the sites that I take people who want to see these sites, pilgrims to.
Yeah. Beautiful. And, I'm interested because you also said that you are a scholar and like a very analytical person. So I can totally relate to that, because I can go down rabbit holes, like, big black ones. And then it's a whole other story processing that on a mental plane, but it's a whole other story than actually walking these lands and having an experience. So how does that go together for you?
So it's interesting. So the two main, I guess, sources that have influenced my, work here in the land, of course, they're the Holy Megillah, which is the Nazarene Bible of the Essene Way. This scroll was literally just revealed to the public this year, I think in January, February. Unbelievable. It's an alternative version of the Bible, Hebrew scrolls translated in English. All of the prophets that we know from the Bible, but completely non-violent stories, highly spiritual text. I've been studying and practicing that for 10 years. So secretly, I haven't been able to speak about it publicly. Now I can.
Hey, everybody. If you are enjoying the show, then you would do me the biggest favor in clicking the subscribe button and engaging with my content so I can continue to deliver these beautiful conversations to you. Thank you so much.
So I was really already been so immersed in that. And so, for example, they talk about the Essene Nazarene community in Mount Carmel, and they talk about the cave of Elijah. And this place I was telling you about, it's there. And so there were times when I went on a pilgrimage to this land, actually with another group, and there was a woman there who had received a vision that she would meet an Essene teacher who would teach her in a cave. And then we met on this pilgrimage at this site. I said, "Oh, that's me." And I took her up to the cave, and we did this like really powerful meditation that was informed by that. I told her the story, like from the scroll, what the scroll says. And then I have a knack of turning wisdom into meditation. So I could kind of just take any topic or numbers or letters, holy names, and I could just turn it into an activation. And so we did that. And then, very similar with Magdala. So Magdala is where Mary Magdalene lived from, 7 to 16. She was in Magdala only that period. She came to Magdala after her father was killed in Ethiopia, and she left Magdala when her mother was killed in Ethiopia. So they were persecuted. So the Essenes were a highly persecuted sect, and they were non-violent. So, unless they could protect themselves with a wooden staff, they were pretty much killed. And so going to Magdala beach, where it is believed that she lived, in this kind of secret beach that it must be protected by the divine, because nobody goes there. It's like this little oasis of Garden of Eden. I was there like almost daily for like years when I lived there. And again, just guiding women according to the mantras that the Magdalene use, according to the scrolls, to the teachings, just really informed. My guidance in these lands is informed. And then, of course, the other book I work a lot with, which I'll talk more about after, is the Tikkunei Zohar, which is a very sacred, secret Kabbalistic text that is just now, it's incredible. Again, I've been studying it for 10 years with my rabbi, and just this year has it started to be translated into English, and everybody's hearing about it. I remember there was a Jewish holiday in Sfat last year, and we were just blown away because somebody was going out with flyers telling people to read the Tikkun Zohar. And the Tikkun Zohar is all about the Shekhinah. It's all about the divine feminine. It's the only Jewish book that's about that. And so through those readings, and it's very encoded and secret, and through those readings with my rabbi and his lineage, did I understand that Mount Arbel, which is right next to Migdal, is very much connected to the redemption. And again, like going to these lands, taking people, chanting mantras, guiding meditations, and bringing the sacred teachings that are very like unknown. It was really miraculous how I would find these things along the way. It's not public knowledge, although it's becoming public knowledge now. And just taking those teachings and guiding activations, meditations, teachings at these sites. So that's how I really bring them together.
I love it. My whole body is vibrating right now, so I can really feel the energy heighten. And just, I know that we are also want to talk about the Kabbalah, but I want to say for a moment, really,
Sure.
that these Essene teachings also, that especially, Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, and all of their disciples went into, and you spoke about some of the things, but can you maybe summarize truly what is at the core of these teachings?
Absolutely. The core of these teachings, if I were to summarize it as one commandment, and it's not a commandment because the teachings don't speak like that. You must do this and you must not, but you can ascertain from the various teachings, and that is vegetarianism. And I'm getting chills, I'm saying it because I'm so passionate about this. In these years that I sought to understand why is there so much war and what can we do to stop it, the teachings clearly state that the reason mankind fell is not because Eve ate an apple. It's because the devil deceived Adam and Eve into killing and eating animals. And then it clearly states that the way that we ascend and restore heaven on earth is through a return to the fleshless diet. So this is the fundamental. And Yeshua and Miriam only had one requirement for their disciples, and that was a basic vegetarian diet. Can include eggs and dairy. They should be well cared for, which is really hard, but flesh is absolutely not allowed. Of course, you can go and eat flesh, but you're not going to be following their way then, their true high calling way. And they knew that their way at 2,000 years ago, they knew that it wouldn't be, not everybody would be ready to receive it. And that's why they founded what we know of today as Christianity. They didn't found it, they foresaw that a religion would be made in their name. And they had those two different levels. So they had the Christianity, and then they had the Essene Nazarene Christianity, which vegetarianism is at the heart of it. Some other really important key tenets: they worship Divine Mother and Divine Father, God and Goddess. The same Hebrew names for God that we have from Judaism, we have in the Essene religion. It's a Hebrew religion. They have a separate priesthood. So the Jewish have the Kohanim, the priesthood of the Kohanim, and the Essenes have the priesthood of the Nazarene, which means it's in modern day Hebrew, a Nazir is a monk. But in the Essene version, a Nazir is a priest, because a priest by default is a monk also. They also meditate. Yeah. They also do yoga. Another key tenet that really differentiates this religion is that they have a system of yoga. It's called Yichud im Etz HaChaim, which means union with the tree of life. And it has things that we would know of as yoga: hatha yoga, breath work, meditations, chanting, mantras. Their system of yoga, tree of life yoga as it's called, is based on the tree of life, which has 7 chakras down the central channel. 7 roots going into the earth and 7 branches going up to the heavens. And the other key tenet is that Yeshua is the Son of God and the Lord Christ Savior. And Mary Magdalene is the daughter of the goddess, and she is the Lady Christ, Supreme Mother Savior. So that's the religion in a nutshell.
Wow. Thank you. And the vegetarianism that you mentioned, like, as first thing, I'm surprised, but I'm not, in a way. But I'm like, okay, well, that is the thing that I would have least expected.
I know. It's so simple and it's so in front of us. But when you really think about it, or when at least you become a vegetarian, you can say, because I'll tell you how they describe it. They say, when we eat, obviously there's vegetarian people who eat meat who are very spiritual, and I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just explaining like how God explains what the eating of meat actually does. So when we eat the flesh of an animal, our Magen Ha'or, our shield of light, is dimmed. And as a result of that, entities and demons and dark energies are able to enter into our mind and cause us to think thoughts that we believe to be our own. That's how the manipulation occurs. So you can imagine a world leader who eats meat, and he's got some demon coming into his mind telling him, go and start a war, go and oppress your people, like whatever it might be. And that's how the manipulation occurs. And so basically, the Essenes teach that animal sacrifice, human sacrifice, and the eating of flesh is the covenant of the devil. And the tree of life, which is, and they're all about diet, these things. They're all about like really high vibrational cleansing, purification diets. That's of the tree of life. That's the way of God. Yeah, very important, foundational.
Thank you for bringing that up, especially as we are heading into a period where it's all about food and drinking for a lot of us. So.
I would say those of your listeners who do eat meat, nobody's telling you to give it up immediately, but hold it as a goal and aspire to get there. And every week, always trying a new vegetarian recipe, and just less and less and less and less. And the problem is, if you've been eating meat your whole life, you will have parasites, and those parasites actually compel you to continue to eat meat. So there does need to be some internal cleansing to get it out, to make that transition easier. Yeah. And also stop with the red meat first, then the white, then the fish. That's also a really good way to do it. Mm.
Yeah. Thank you for these dietary tips on the side. Oh, wow. Okay, so now that, we've gone into the core teachings of the Essenes, where would we find these anchor points on the land, if you were to name just a few?
Sure. So definitely Mount Carmel. That's like the first, I would say. Magdala. So here's the thing. In the Essene story of Magdala 2,000 years ago, the account, so they had an authorized scribe. Their authorized scribe was their Mary Magdalene's adopted daughter and disciple, Sarah. I know that's different than what most people believe, but she was much older. Mary Magdalene didn't give birth there. She was already 14 years old when Mary Magdalene went to France. She actually gave birth to a boy. But anyway, another story. So they had an authorized scribe. So everything I'm telling you was written down by their authorized scribe. So Magdala, as I said, Mary Magdalene only lived there from 7 to 16. And later on in their ministry, there is a few stories of Yeshua going there and some things happening there. But it's not like a major site as we understand major sites from the Bible. But what's interesting about Magdala is that it's meant to be a major site in the second coming. So, and this is my understanding. So Migdal, in the Bible, you have a prophecy about the Migdal Eder. It's the only prophecy in the mainstream Bible that talks about Mary Magdalene. Migdal Eder, Migdal meaning watchtower, Eder of the flock. And it's clearly a messianic prophecy about a female. And then when we go to the Essene scrolls, Migdal Eder, that's Mary Magdalene's name. She is the watchtower of the flock. So Migdal is the modern city, Magdala is the ancient city, and right next to them is Arbel, which is behind you. And in between the three of them, I was like shocked when I found this out. There's a Bedouin village there. I have a lot of connection with Bedouins. I lived many years in Sinai, and I started to, connect with this community. And I was shocked. So the name of the Bedouin village in Arabic is Wadi Hammam. And I just assumed that it meant like hammam, like a Turkish bath, right? Turns out Wadi Hammam in Hebrew or in English means Valley of the Doves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And in Wadi Hammam, where Arbel is, this is where a lot's going on there. So you've got Migdal, Magdala, Arbel, Valley of the Doves. And my understanding is that this area is going to become incredibly important in the coming years for the redemption, essentially. Then Ein Gedi on the Dead Sea, that was where all of the Lord and Lady's companions, there was like maybe 100 of them or something, can't remember the numbers. They actually were up in the cliffs above Ein Gedi, and they trained there for months in preparation for their outreach ministry to all of Israel. So Ein Gedi is a hugely important site. So yeah, for me, Tzfat, which is a Kabbalistic site, we can talk about that later. But Essene sites, Jerusalem, they didn't really, not much happened in Jerusalem. Of course, the ending of the story happened there. The crucifixion and all of that, that's of course important. Bethlehem is another one I think is important. That's where Yeshua was born. So those are the sites that I consider holy and sacred, and that I have some experience for some of them in.
Thank you. And for some reason, also like the Sea of Galilee itself and these waters to me are always very, like it comes up in my vision when I tune in with the land.
That's so interesting. So in the Jewish tradition, a lot of the tzaddikim are like the righteous saints, the rabbis from past. A lot of them choose to get buried around the Sea of Galilee. There's many of them in Tigris, which is right next to the Sea of Galilee. The reason for that is because, according to the mystical traditions of Judaism, this will be the site of the redemption. So the vision I have is that it's almost like a football field. Like imagine a huge football field, and you've got the field in the middle and you've got the grandstands that are around it. I feel like the Sea of Galilee is going to be like the field. There'll be maybe a holy temple there, I'm not sure. And then all the mountains that surround the Sea of Galilee, because it's the lowest point. It's the lowest point of natural body of water. I don't know if it's in the world or in Israel. Dead Sea is even lower, but it's so all around it is like this grandstand surrounding it. And so all that area is holy. Like all of Galilee is just wow, amazing. And I feel like people are just going to come in droves and just take up residence around, and things will just unfold over there.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, you've mentioned so many times like the second coming, the redemption. Is this something that we want to explore now, or is there some Kabbalistic background that you want to weave in before we go there?
Well, they actually weave really well together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's move to the Kabbalah and tell us how you got into these teachings and how they weave in together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had come to Israel on a mission, I think almost 10 years ago. And I was with some priestess sisters, and our journey at the last moment was completely changed from the plan we had set out to do, which of course was, and so we had an RV truck. We were three holy women, and we had 10 days. We're like, what are we going to do? And one of the women I was with, she's Jewish, and she said, let's go visit my rabbi, my father-in-law in Tzfat. And Tzfat is the holy city of Kabbalah. Like, this is like where all the mystical, secret, Kabbalistic mysticism is coming from. And so we went there, and my life was forever changed. And I met the rabbi, her father-in-law, and he opened up the the Tikkunei Zohar, which is this book. And he's got the energy of Shlomo Melech, like King Solomon. He's a very, very wise and holy man. And so he's a prophet. He has the gift of prophecy. And so when he's reading from this book, he's literally reading the words, but there's like deeper meaning given to him through the words. And so he's reading through this book, and he told us many, many things. Actually, I did a whole podcast on this exact topic. If anybody wants to, I can send it. But the main thing that he said that really changed the course of my life, he said that I was a high priestess and a prophetess. And from that day forth, he and I stayed in touch. And for the next 10 years, I would come back and forth to Israel, and I would stay with him and his family, and I would serve in his home and his community mystical Jewish Kabbalah center, and learn and teach and host and study this book with him. So over the 10 years, he would share with me all of these secrets about the redemption. And he wouldn't call it the second coming, of course, he's Jewish. But, to the Jew, it's the coming of the Messiah, To Christians, it's the second coming. Yeah. So that's how I got into that world.
For people, yeah, it's like, letting it sink in, because it's a lot.
Yes.
And again, I want to ask, because for people who maybe have heard about the Kabbalah but are not really familiar with the teachings, if you can also just speak to the essence of what this wisdom is about.
Sure. So I can only speak about what my journey into it was about. It's a lot more than this, but
yeah.
As I've mentioned, my research focus has really been around three things: the Shekhinah, the divine feminine; the redemption, the end of times, beginning of the new times; and the Messiah. So my understanding of Kabbalah is very much like around that. I'm not really interested in anything else because it just doesn't seem relevant to me or to the world. Because remember, my original dream was I want to find the answer to peace. Right all the way back when I was 19 years old, I was in the Middle East searching for the answers to peace. And so now it's like I'm searching for that in the Kabbalah. So first of all, Kabbalah is a Hebrew word that means receive. So the literal meaning of it is receive. So it innately has this kind of feminine side to it. It's very energetic and spiritual. There's 10 Sephirot. It's based on the Kabbalistic tree of life, which has 10 Sephirot. And rather than the Essene 7, which are it's the same as the Indian ones, the Kabbalistic ones are 10. Some of them are placed down the center, but they're also placed along the side of the body as well. And the central Sephirah, it's called Sephirah, means chakra, basically. The central Sephirah is called Tiferet, which is the only chakra or Sephirah that connects all the other chakras. And so a few years ago, my rabbi gave me the name. He was reading from his book and he said, your name is Tiferet. I was like, it's a very uncommon name in Israel. It's very religious and it's big. It's really big. It actually literally means glory. So every year on Israeli Independence Day, the people say, and you'll hear it on the news while they're celebrating, Vele Tiferet Medinat Yisrael, to the glory of the state of Israel. And every synagogue has Tiferet written on it. And it's the central chakra of the Tree of Life Kabbalistic system. And he's trying to give me this name. I was like, no. I don't want it. I don't want it. It's too, I wanted like Ella. Ella's like more like cool, like a bit more secular even, like Tiferet sounds religious. And over the years, he would continue to give me this name. And I was like, no, I don't want it. And then during COVID, I escaped Australia and I was on my way to Israel. I got deported. And then I basically got stuck in Sinai. Not stuck, it was amazing, but it's called Galut v'Mitzrayim. I was exiled to Egypt for like all of COVID. I was like on the border of Israel. And I was yearning to enter Israel. And it was like almost 2 years I was trying to get back in. And then I was talking to my rabbi all the time. And at one point, he's like, you're going to, and he gave this kind of prophecy about how I would return. And I'm not going to get into that. But one of the things he said, you're going to return to Israel and you're going to use your Jewish name. This is the name for these. This is your name for these times. And so I started using Tiferet and my life changed. And I really love it now. So everybody in Israel calls me Tiferet. So that's the central chakra of the tree of life. Another thing that's really unique to the Kabbalah that you don't have. So first of all, the Kabbalah is very controversial. So you have the Jewish Torah, which is like rules and it's like strict and, you know, you can imagine a religion to me, but the Kabbalah tends to be very controversial. So I'll give you an example of how controversial it is. So in the Jewish religion, they have the mitzvot. The mitzvot are the rules. They're like the 100 and something rules that they follow every day. So in the Kabbalah, and this is like very secret stuff. This is stuff that these are conversations I would have over the years with rabbis, but these rabbis wouldn't necessarily say these things to their classes. But because I'm so deep and I ask penetrating questions and things like that, I get all this information. So yeah, this is really crazy. So in the secrets of Kabbalah, they would say that the Torah that the Jewish people have is for this world only. And that when the Messiah comes, there's going to be like a new Torah, but it's not really a new Torah. It's like an old Torah that seems new. And when that happens, all of the mitzvot that the Jewish people now follow won't apply anymore. And so this is a really controversial thing to say because they're so committed to their mitzvot and their rules, and to even conceive that it's all going to be gone is really it's a big deal. It's a bold claim. And so you can't say that, especially to religious people, but I can say it because I think I say it all the time. I went telling whoever would listen, I was like, do you know this is what they say? And people, you know, and what's now my theory is that this Holy Megillah is that new Torah.
Well, it would also, you know, like the timing of that being rediscovered,
right,
holds also some significance. And, you know, I just feel like what you're saying isn't also this whole way of thinking and like transcending this perceived, controversial or like polarities. Isn't that also so new earth or of the second coming or whatever you want to call it? So
the Jews have a name for it. So they call it Ha'olam Haba, the world to come. And that's the world that is basically with the Messiah and peace on earth and heaven on earth. And so there's another Kabbalah teacher. And again, you know, not many people know this. He was a recent one. He was only here like in the last 100 years. His name's Rav Kook. And he basically says in the times of Messiah, Mashiach is the Hebrew word for Messiah, will be vegetarian. And then he says vegetarianism is a way to actually bring Messiah. And I just love that.
Okay. Right. I see that there is a red thread throughout the conversation.
Yes. So that's my study. That's my passion. My passion is to actually find all of the things that actually unify them, like where and there's a lot.
I mean, when you spoke about, you know, the Tiferet, like that's what I see. I see that weaving and the spider web. And so that, it feels like there's a lot of this essence coming through.
Oh man, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So going or weaving that back into the lands and the sacred sites. So where would we find these places where we can access this Kabbalistic consciousness in a way?
Absolutely, yeah. And so this is where it all meets in Mount Arbel. So I think it was maybe 3.5 years ago. Oh, not 3.5 years. Sorry, like 2 years ago, my rabbi, I knew I wanted to live somewhere in Galilee. but I wasn't sure where. And my rabbi says to me, go live in Migdal. That's your place. I was like, okay, great. I'm going to live in Migdal. And then he starts to tell me that all that area, Migdal, Arbel, that's where the redemption happens. That's where the redemption happens. I was like, okay, great. And I would talk to people about it, but no one had really heard about it. And so I lived there for 1.5 years, and I would go down to the water in Magdalene, and I would like pray for the sisters to come and calling all the souls. And I just know they're all going to come after the war. And over time, I would start to do my own research and find out bits and pieces of information about like what, how, and why is this the site. And I ended up finding some information. It was from a very like obscure tzaddik, a saint, a Jewish saint, an obscure one, you know, shrouded in mystery. And he was connected to the Iraqi, which is another very, I could talk about an Iraqi rabbi in Kabbalah, you know, for another hour, but he's from an Iraqi lineage. And he said that this is, you know, through his reading and his, you know, Nevuah, his prophecy, he said that this is the place where the redemption will be and where the Messiah will come. And I met a guy who lived in Migdal who went to the synagogue, the Beit Chabad synagogue, and she said that the rabbi there was also saying it. So it's a thing. It's a thing. It's a secret thing, but it's known. And even if you walk over to Mount Arbel, you've got like a sign there in English, and it says that according to the Midrash, which is like the Jewish, you know, teachings, not the Bible, but other teachings, that says that this is the place where the redemption will happen. And there's like a story between two rabbis, and they're like talking about the Jezreel Valley, which is the valley that goes through Arbel and Migdal, through Wadi Hammam, which is the Valley of the Doves, which is the Bedouin village. And they're walking along, and they're like, just as the sun rises, you know, so too will the redemption come from the Jezreel Valley. And I was there one day, and with my husband, and we discovered something else there. And it was an ancient synagogue that's called, it's crazy. It's written on a sign. It's written in 3 languages: Arabic, Hebrew, and English. Like each word in a different language. It's called, unbelievable. It's called Hammam Radim Ruins. Hammam is Arabic for doves.
The dove.
Radim is roses. And
Okay.
ruins is ruins. So it's doves, roses, ruins. Now in the Kabbalah, but also in the Magdalene Essene world, we know that roses and doves are the Magdalene, right?
Yeah.
It's obvious. We in that world know that. That's not so much of a secret to us. In the Kabbalah, the dove and the rose are codes for the Messiah. They're messianic codes for the Messiah. Like anybody will tell you that. Not anybody, but somebody with knowledge will tell you that. And they're throughout the Tikkun Ezeh, you see it. You see the rose and the doves, and also through the Torah you see it as well. So here I am going to Doves, Roses, Ruins, this ancient synagogue that overlooks Magdala Beach, and I'm in the Valley of Doves, and I've got Arbel next to me and Migdal also behind me. And I went there, and it was and then there's rocks that are shaped in the shape of a heart.
Oh, wow.
Ancient rocks that were literally made up the ancient 2nd century synagogue that are shaped like hearts. And it's just like, what is going on here? And then I did some research about this like kind of unnamed site. It's just called Doves, Roses, Ruins. It doesn't necessarily it's not called this synagogue or that synagogue. It's just Doves, Rose, Ruins, which is also very strange. You know, usually you would have the name of the synagogue and there would be a lot of information about it, but there really isn't. And so I did some research, and I found out that this second century synagogue we're not sure, but may be attributed to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who is the author of all of the Kabbalistic texts, the Zohar, including the Tikkun Zohar, which I follow. So it may be his. They also say it might be connected to him. It might be connected to another one, but for me, it's him. It's him. He's the one that sent me there. He's my main guide from the other side. He guides me through my rabbi. And then it says that the Messiah will come to this synagogue in the month of, I think it was Nisan. It's like the Jewish month. It's like around springtime or something. And that's what it says. It says that there's a prophecy that says the Messiah will come. So these are the places I lead. I lead my tours. I take them to there. I take them to the mountain, to Magdalene Beach. And I share this information and these stories and the activations associated with the names or mantras and things like that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your tours. If people want to come visit with you, how do you guide them?
Sure. So first of all, I'm doing a huge retreat pilgrimage in October of next year. So plenty of time. I'm going to start with 10 days in Israel and then 10 days in Egypt. So I also lived in Egypt almost 5 years. And so I really know that land well, in much the way I know Israel. So that's a huge tour. That's going to be 20 days pilgrimage. We're going to go to all of the sites I spoke about, plus another, bunch of sites in Egypt as well. So I'll put a link for that. Alternatively, if you are coming to Israel with a group or alone, you can book me for like a private tour, like a one that like I would recommend, if you just want like a kind of a taster, is we do 1 day together. We go to Mount Carmel, Magdala, and Arbel. These are my three, this is my heart. I've lived in these places. I've studied these places. And so we can just do like a one-on-one. And I'll put the link for the tour. Just get in touch with me on Facebook or email me. And then if you're wanting, so what my vision is that I want to run pilgrimages for retreat leaders so that they can bring their priestesses here and I can kind of move on to my next project, whatever that might be. There's many. So that's my goal, is to like kind of train everybody up and share all of my knowledge, and then they can go off and bring their women. So you can come privately. I can help you with a tour. I can do it with you. And then we would basically be going to the sites. There will be teachings, drumming, healing, possibly medicine as well if you want, prayers, meditation, whatever we're inspired. And also I will take photos of you as well. So you'll have lots of beautiful photos. Very important.
It is. And, it all sounds like very tempting and very beautiful. And I guess one of the questions that comes to mind for people listening or watching is, okay, how do you go about safety procedures? Like, how safe is it right now actually to visit?
Actually, Israel is incredibly safe. Like if you go and read the biblical messianic prophecies about these times, it basically says that like all of the neighbors of Israel will come against Israel, and their weapons will not prosper. And that's what you see happening. They're all like trying, and Israel has such an incredible, defense system. Like I was living right close to the border and I would hear stuff going on all day, every day around me. Just once a rocket landed really close. That was scary. But generally speaking, I don't know. I see Israel safe. The particular sites that I would take you to are actually not near the border. Yes, they're somewhat north, but they're not near the border. You might hear a rocket, but I think it's like 99 or 98% of rockets are exploded. Like if you look at the numbers of how many people have died in Israel from rockets, it's barely any. It's very, very safe. Where it's not safe is Gaza and Lebanon and all of that. So I consider Israel. So if you are a brave person, generally you're just a bit courageous, just come. I don't see, if you want to come alone, if you're really feeling cold. Right now there's a ceasefire as well. So it's actually good time now. I don't think there even are any rockets. I don't follow the news, so I don't know what's going on. But so I feel it's safe. I really do, especially those sites. Personally, I feel very safe here. Yeah. Just follow your calling. Yeah.
And I also often feel, and that's probably right now, as you said, very, very like local, depending on where you are. Mm-hmm. But that often once you are in a country, the situation is very different from what we hear outside by and what is reported and everything. So yeah, thank you for speaking into that. And while you were sharing so much also about the second coming, and it's interesting that all the names that you mentioned that were also new to me, but especially in comparison with what you said about vegetarianism and everything, we can get caught up in this idea that it is something happening outside of us or almost like to us, but actually we are all part of it. And so I want to ask you, like, what do you feel, or what would be your answer right now from all of these studies? Like, how can we bring peace to the world? Like, each and every one of us, what can we do as a contribution to that?
Sure. Great question. So the second coming, I always like describe it as it's three things. First is a consciousness. Second, it's like a man and a woman. It's the Magdalene Yeshua. They will be returning in physical embodiment, and there will just be one of them each. And then it's actually 144,000 people as well. So the Essenes teach that once we reach critical mass of 144,000 Christ Messiahs, the world will be completely transformed. So they teach that there's going to be 144,000 souls at this time who find the Holy Megillah, who find the Essene teachings, who feel so compelled to follow this path that they actually develop themselves to such a spiritual level that they become initiated Christ Messiahs. So we often think about Jesus as the Messiah, and he's kind of the only one. Yeshua teaches that he succeeds by creating Christs. So he didn't come for us to follow him. He came to teach us how to be like him. So if that path is calling you, absolutely. If you come into my Facebook group, I can tag you in a post where you can download the scrolls for free. The high priest has given permission. The high priest is in Oregon. I'm not affiliated with the church. I just live it. But he's in Oregon. You can buy your studies. You can study you can start your studies in the Order of the Blue Rose. This is Mary Magdalene's order, and it's not channeled. It's based on scrolls, and these scrolls are Hebrew. These are legitimate ancient scrolls. So if that path calls you, that's absolutely one way, and I would say probably the most powerful way. But this path doesn't call everyone. So, and that's okay. So definitely vegetarianism is really the number one. It was just made so abundantly clear that that is the quickest way for us to create heaven on earth, because in heaven, in the Garden of Eden, there is no murder. There is no murder. And so when we're talking about creating heaven on earth, that's how we do it. Meditating is also really important. Every week in my Facebook group, I also do everything in my group is free, a free prayer where I gather. It's called the Magdalene Sisters Peace Circle, where I read from the scrolls. We do singing and Hebrew mantras. We pray and we meditate for peace. So every week I've been pretty much holding a peace circle weekly since the war started. So that's another way you can actively be involved in bringing peace, and also, get your own healing and blessing, because I am a healer and I'm always sending that energy. And what else? Something that's just popping into my mind now. I haven't really thought much about it for many years, but it's becoming important. Make sure you're not drinking fluoridated water. Fluoridated water shuts the pineal gland down. Most tap water is. I know there are some countries in Europe that maybe don't put fluoride in because it was challenged by activists and the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. I can't remember what countries they are. Go and check your water source. Even if you're buying bottled water, you need to go and look at the company, and you need to maybe call them even up. Do you put fluoride in your water? Fluoride shuts your spiritual antenna down. So that one is really important. I was thinking, how can we get all the people off fluoridated water? Because it makes them, docile and unable to perceive the higher spiritual realities. And heal yourself. Just heal yourself. Get lots of healing. Lots of healing. Love yourself. Yeah.
Love yourself. Yes, definitely. Everybody love yourself and others too.
Love yourself. And that's the name of my movie. And love thy neighbor. And in the Bible, it's in Hebrew, ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha. Love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm. Isn't that also one of the commandments?
Yeah, it's like, it's not one of the 10 commandments. It's like there was a Jewish scholar that asked Yeshua, like, how would you summarize the law? And it's called the Golden Rule. And Yeshua said to love yourself as your neighbor, to love God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, and all of your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's his golden rule, and his summation of the law in the mainstream version. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. So there's a lot of things there to unravel that we can like do on a very physical level, but also on a spiritual level. And again, like it comes, together as this weaving process of the all. And so before we let people know where to find you, is there anything that you feel as an important wisdom that you haven't shared yet?
Just all I hear and feel is love, 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 love. And there's an Essene saying that says, love in all ways, always in love. Which brings me to the Shekhinah, the divine feminine. So the divine feminine, this is interesting. The Jews teach that the way we get out of exile and into redemption, how we leave Galut and go into Geulah, is by receiving the Shekhinah. So the reason we're in exile is because the Shekhinah, the divine feminine goddess, has been banished, which she has. We know she's coming back. And so really inviting the divine feminine goddess into your life. How? We do that with breath. We do that with movement. We do that with embodiment and singing and dancing and devotion. And so just a lot of the women that are probably listening are already doing that. But men also, like, connect with the Shekhinah, invite the divine feminine, and she's within. She can't be understood in the head. She can only be felt and experienced with the heart and the body. And that is literally the answer to the redemption. Like, that's how we all get redeemed, by bringing the Shekhinah from exile in and elevating her to her rightful place as our queen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that.
Yes.
So I know that you have a few beautiful free offerings. You already mentioned your Facebook group, but there's one or two more. So let's share what that is.
Absolutely. So if all of this things we've been discussing like interests you and the lands and the topics, then I teach an online 3-month or 12-week container called The Way of the Tantric Priestess. And it's looking at the lineages of Tantra of the Essene Magdalene, Hathor Isis Tantra from ancient Egypt, and also Shakti Kriya Tantric lineages from India. And that starts in January 18th, but I'm hosting a free Tantric Priestess Masterclass for you to come along and actually to see if that's something that you'd like to do. And so if you'd like to come along to that, that will be on January 11th. I will give the link to you to sign that up if you want to kind of journey into these lands on a very spiritual, divine, feminine priestess path. And my free gift for you is I've filmed a short, like a 15-minute yoga sequence with some chanting and some movement and some meditation from Magdala Beach on the Sea of Galilee. So you've got the beautiful, from that secret beach I told you about, you've got all the greenery and you can see the water behind. And I'm just sharing a short practice that you can practice from this sacred site.
Wow, I'm excited. I want to do that. So we'll put the notes. Yeah, the links in the show notes. And also your website, your social media links, so people know where to find you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, of course, the pilgrimage. So yeah, people have everything to indulge in the Essene wisdom teachings, the Kabbalistic, the Tantric, like all that you have to offer, which is that beautiful weaving of so many, things coming together.
Actually, one of the definitions of Tantra is weaving. And so at my heart, I'm a tantrika, and I love to weave.
Yes, you're definitely a weaver. Wow, what a profound and insightful conversation. Thank you so much. My heart feels like it's, bursting of, just so much that was shared. And it's not necessarily teachings that are open to us when we are not in the lineage. So thank you for coming on and sharing all of what you have to offer.
My pleasure. Thank you. And beautiful blessings to all of your listeners and to you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening and tuning in. We hope that you found lots of pearls of wisdom and can indulge in this beautiful time of year. Take some time out and indulge in the true Christ teachings, as we have mentioned. And just find a lot of heart wisdom that was shared. See you next time.